Welcome to Sports Beat KC, a sports podcast presented by the Kansas City Star. I'm Blair Kerkhoff. We're joined today by Royals beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnists Sam Mellinger and Vahe Gregorian, and the topic is the Royals. It's been a rough start for Kansas City. They're 14-27 going into the series opener against the Texas Rangers on Tuesday. Hasn't been all bad for the Royals, but we talk good things and bad with Lynn, Vahe, and Sam. But before we get started, here's some need-to-know info in the fast-paced world of Sports Beat KC and our efforts to keep you updated. A chunk of our conversation is dedicated to Nicky Lopez, the middle infielder who's hitting .353 in Omaha. We discussed his future with the organization, specifically his immediate future, and speculated when he might be called up to the Royals. That answer came about 3 hours after recording. The Royals announced late Monday afternoon that Lopez would be with the team starting with Tuesday's series opener against the Texas Rangers. Lopez will play second base and Whit Merrifield will move to the outfield. Just a couple of days earlier, Royals general manager Dayton Moore said calling up Lopez wasn't imminent, and on Monday, Moore explained why he said what he did. Quote, "It was not intentional. I didn't expect this to happen this fast. I anticipated the end of May, early June based on all the moving parts. But things change in a minute in this game." So, enjoy our conversation about the Royals and know that when we get to the part about Nicky Lopez, understand he's now in Kansas City. All right, Lynn Worthy. These Royals at 14-27, better than their record, worse than their record, about what their record says they are.
I'll go better than their record, but I'm not sure how much better just because the overall sense is just inconsistency. So, I mean, it's better than 14 wins, but it's not a team that should be contending right now.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, all right, so where has this team, we're at the quarter pole, where has this team failed the season? I don't know if anybody went into the year thinking this was a contending team, but I don't think anybody believed this was going to be at 41 games, one game better than it was at this time a year ago. So, Sam Mellinger, where can this team get better?
Pitching. The pitching is garbage. But we talked about the bullpen a lot early in the year, and justifiably so. The bullpen was just atrocious. I mean, it was just like a monotonous, dark joke, like every day. And now the rotation has started to catch up a little bit with that. And quietly, we haven't, this hasn't been talked about that much, but the bullpen's gotten a lot better. Like in the last, I did the math, and I think, before this weekend, like going into either Friday or Saturday's game, over the last 15 games, the bullpen's ERA was 3.65, something like that, right in there, which is, top third in baseball. And some of that is they're using guys different, like Scott Barlow in particularly being able to go, more than one inning. But the rotation right now, a lot of times it's just not really giving them a chance. And Brad Keller, who the first, 5 starts or so was pretty solid, like pretty reliable. Not an ace, but like a middle of the rotation, a 3 kind of guy. And now did I see this? He leads the league in walks now.
With 32.
Yeah. And it's been, I'm trying to remember if it's been exactly since, but almost since that suspension. Like the starts since then have just been rough. Since that, after he got suspended for throwing at Anderson from the White Sox, Tim Anderson, all the starts since then have just been rough outings for him. Yeah. Just all over the place with command. I mean, some of them he's still giving them some length, but they have not been what everybody thought coming into this year when spring training. Oh, he's going to be the best pitcher they got in the staff, and he's going to be their ace. And he looked like it first couple starts, but since then it's just been all over the place.
I think Vahe Gregorian, you can almost put Jacob Junis in this boat as well. I mean, so your opening day starter and your supposed number 2 guy have just been really inconsistent throughout the whole year and kind of bad lately.
Yeah, and yesterday when Ned Yost was talking about Junis, I mean, he kind of laid it on the line, and basically saying either you're not willing to throw strikes or you can't throw strikes. And Lynn, you were there. It seemed to me that was very specific at Jacob. I mean, Ned was talking more broadly, but I think they're really disappointed in him in ways that they're not going to say directly. But I think that's been not a regression exactly, but not a step forward they expected. And when you combine this with Keller Yeah, he's not an ace, as Sam pointed out, but he is your opening day starter. And if your boundaries begin with those two, and you can't count on just consistency, then you're really in the muck.
I was so encouraged by the early starts of these two guys. But is it a little too much to expect for 23-year-old Brad Keller, Rule 5 guy, to be carrying the weight of a rotation? I don't know if that's fair for him, Lynn.
Well, in going back to what you said, Vahe, about Ned's comments after the game, I think he was sort of talking about both. Because if I remember right, the question was the young pitchers, what's going on in this last month, and so I think he was talking about both. And I think, like you said, I'd lean towards there's just not a step forward. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm not sure if it's really a full step back or if it's just sort of we want to call it the growing pains, whatever. But they're not making a step forward, and that really shows right now for them because they finally got the bullpen on track, at least to a certain extent. I think I was looking at numbers earlier. It's like since April 23rd, that bullpen ERA is like down around 3. It might even be a little bit under 3 since that date. And some of the guys that people wanted out of here as fast as they could get. Diekman's got, I think, 9 straight outings now without giving up a run. Boxberger's like 6. They've spread some of those out. But, I mean, those guys that people want out of here as fast as they could get. I'm not saying that they're, lights out, but they've gotten better, with some of those same guys. And they got some new guys in there, too. But the rotation is just, it's holding them back because you have days where you can get some offense, and the last couple of days aren't a good example, but they've had days where they've gotten offense, they've been in games, and the starting rotation just can't, sort of keep them. I mean, they keep them in it, but they don't give them a chance to win it.
I think Twitter should have a role in the decisions of some of these players, whether they keep them or not. Because
poor Chris Owens, if that happened.
Is that where that transition is, Blair? That's your move to Chris Owens,
and the bottom half of the order offensively. It's not just Owens, although Owens is the symbol, isn't he? Of
there's always one
of what's happened as we set up the offense. They had gone 74 games going into last year without being shut out. And now they've been shut out twice in the last 4 games, including Sunday. No, not Sunday. Saturday against the Phillies. So, and Owings has been in the lineup for at least a couple of those, hasn't he?
I'm trying to remember if he was in for both. I think he might have been in for both. The Houston one, I think he was. I'm trying to remember now off the top of my head. And that was about the week after, or that was the same week after they said they're going to back off him and have him play more, probably like 3 days a week as opposed to every day where he's moving around. Of course, injuries will sort of play a factor in that too, because he'll be, that super utility guy, at least to a certain extent, where they'll plug him in if they have somebody they can't play that day. But yeah, I mean, he's just struggled. He's just struggled to hit consistently, to even put the ball in play. You're not seeing the productive outs. You're seeing a lot of strikeouts.
Runners in scoring position.
Yeah, he's just
Didn't he strike out against a position player?
Yes,
today?
that was the game. I think that's why I can't remember if he was in the next day, because the next day was the shutout. The one before that was when they scored 12 runs, and I think that was the game where they had the position player in at the end. So he had a double in that game too, but nobody remembers the double.
A friend texted me, and it was just, if you can't hit the DH, ...
We've been down this road before, though, with certain players and Ned Yost and what his thought process is. He famously has said all along, whenever you think it's time to pull a guy from the lineup, you give him another week. Yeah. I think Jeff Francoeur was the symbol of a certain era.
He got a lot of weeks.
He did. He did. But is there some merit to the idea of Chris Owings not being in the lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's holding him back. Their explanation on Owings makes some sense to me, and I say that as somebody that doesn't agree with it. It's not what I'd be doing, but when they talk about wanting, they've always wanted their prospects to overperform their promotion. And, for anybody listening that's old enough to remember the previous leadership with the Royals. I mean, this is to me, one of the biggest differences now versus then. Is it used to be you had a hot weekend series in Wichita and you were in the big leagues you were in the big leagues by Monday. Like that's how they went. And
that's
now,
pretty good incentive, I think. Just tear up the Texas League.
Right. So now, I think about like Eric Hosmer. They wanted to keep him down longer than they did, but the kid was hitting like 450 in May in Omaha, right? And it was 450 with power. And that's kind of what, it doesn't always work that way, obviously, but that's what they want from Nicky Lopez. They want, when he comes up, and I think like barring an injury or just a falling off the cliff, like I think it is a win, they want him to have overperformed. And I think one other subtle thing at work here with Owings is, they won't say it like this, but I don't think that organization trusts Mondesi as far as like he's not Alcides Escobar that's going to play 162. They don't trust Mondesi to. I mean, he hasn't played more than I think like 110 games since 2014, something like that. Yeah. So they feel like they need to carry, and this is a difference between when they had Escobar. They feel like they need to carry a backup shortstop, and right now that's Owings. And until they feel like, I think they're playing the long game here, which is, I'm biased. Like I want them to tank. I want them to always be building for a couple years. I think that's how a team like the Royals gets better. But that part of it makes sense to me. And when Lopez comes up, Owings is gone. They're going to shoot him into the sun. They're going to DFA. They'll try and trade him, and if that doesn't work, they'll DFA him. But then Lopez can be your backup shortstop. But they're going to want somebody to be able to play shortstop when Mondesi can't.
I was interested. I think this was your story, Sam. It might have been Lynn's, though. I was interested in the other guy we're thinking about all the time, of course, at AAA, hitting in the 350s is Bubba. Mm-hmm. And I think it was you. You had a distinction about his hitting that's not necessarily worrisome, but gives them some pause.
Yeah. And look, like he's hitting 370 or something. So these are, not huge concerns, but it does come up if you talk to people that have seen him in Omaha and study this a little bit, that he's got at last check, it was something like, Lynn, you may know better than me, but it's something like 21 strikeouts and 7 walks or something like that. And 28 of his, when I looked it up, 28 of his 33 hits at that point were singles. And when you think about how fast he is, that's not a lot of power. That's a lot of soft contact, and I think that's a little bit of a concern. But also, I think more than that, again, like sort of with Lopez, they want him to have more than a hot month. Like he had a really good stretch. Was it 2 years ago? Was it 17? The years kind of get.
He had a good spring training.
He was awful in April, and then he came on. And enough that we went up and did stories on him in Omaha.
Oh, we've done stories on him every step of the way, every year.
Didn't you get with him in Lexington?
Lexington, yeah. I had him in Lexington.
But he has not had a full season of success as a professional. And
correct. That's correct.
And I think that's a reasonable, desire from the organization for him to have more than a hot 5 weeks in Omaha before they bring him up. It is, as much as I might think he's better than Hamilton, because if the scouting judgments that I've heard and we've all heard are true, he's a better defensive player than Billy Hamilton, and that's what they want. They want somebody to cover ground.
I thought he was major league ready defensively coming out of high school.
Yeah,
I mean, seriously, with his speed, his glove.
He's an incredible athlete.
There's nobody that I have pulled for more to be a successful baseball player at the major league level than Bubba Starling.
Yeah,
just a local kid, Gardner Edgerton High. Saw him play baseball and football in high school, phenomenal football player. But when we talk about him and Nicky Lopez, there's a difference in the ages here too. And how does that factor into what the Royals might want to do with both of those guys? Yeah,
Bubba is 26, I think, will turn 27 in August. Lopez is 24?
24.
Is that right?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, like, I think the some of the ceiling is off on Bubba Starling, but if they could call him up, I mean, I would expect they'll talk this talk, and I think it's genuine. But I would, if he's hitting 370, regardless of the quality of contact, he's coming up in September at the very least. He was going to come up in September last year, and then he had, was it an oblique or hand? Yeah, an oblique. So I just, to me, I kind of get it, and some of it might be. You think about it, like, Bubba Starling, he brings a different, like, sort of mental outlook to all this. I mean, he was a kid from Gardner, Kansas that signed for, at the time, I think it was the second biggest bonus in Major League Baseball history. $7.5 million. He was a 4-star recruit as a quarterback at Nebraska.
So in Nebraska.
There was a lot of pressure on this kid. And I think that plays into this too a little bit, that they want him to be able to build up that confidence. That's particularly important for them with Bubba.
And I think the other thing for, both of them, the fact that they're playing every day right now, and where, I guess obviously, from a fan's perspective, it's like just push whoever it is out the way to put these guys in the lineup. Like, that's not necessarily the way the front office looks at it. Like with Nicky, and I know everybody looks to Chris Owings, but I think I just wrote this yesterday. They don't want, and they're sort of, if you ask enough people, they don't want Witt, Merrifield in the outfield every day. So if you bring Nicky up, second base would be the spot for him. And that means Witt would have to be in the outfield, or you'd have to be moving him around, find some way for him, because Witt's going to be in the lineup. Unless they move Witt, Witt's going to be in the lineup. And so that means Nicky can't play second base. So you have, I don't know if you're talking about DH, but they're not going to bring him up for having to play part-time. If he comes up, he's going to be playing every day. Now, the calendar works in this equation too, because if you right now, April, May, there's no appetite for Nicky to come up here and play 3 days a week. You get to the second half of the season, they may have him come up here because he's had X number of at-bats and get him some big league experience. I know that's something that they're considering right now. Like with Gutierrez now, he came up, he was playing every day. But now with Dozier back playing third base, there's still obviously Owings with a couple days a week here and there. If he's not going to play regularly, they're going to think about sending him back down. And depending on what the rest of the things look like, that might be when Nicky maybe gets a little bit of a taste, and he could be back and forth. But it's the playing time is the big thing for them. And I haven't seen these numbers, but I know there's some talk about Nicky's hard hit rate is not necessarily off the charts either. Like it's not like he's out there ripping balls all over the place at a time when in AAA the ball is flying because he's using that Major League Baseball. I think I just retweeted recently a story about that. Ball is flying in AAA, and these guys aren't exactly, hitting the ball all over the ballpark. So, and then also just the fact that neither one of those guys is on the 40-man right now means that there are roster considerations that you have to play into that too. I know fans don't really care about that. Get rid of whoever you need to get rid of, but it's just something that I think for the front office, they consider these things when it comes to, taking their time. That all factors in.
All right, so let's project when we'll see both of those in a Major League uniform. This year?
Nicky for sure, at least in my opinion. Bubba, I would think by the time we were looking at September. Also, trade deadline, because I think there's some guys, especially some of these veteran guys who are in one-year deals. If they play well, that's the other thing, is that's another reason why sometimes, maybe not Chris Owings, because I don't know how hot he would have to get for there to be value on him. But some of these guys on the one-year deal, you can move them later in the year if there's somebody they feel a need for somebody who's in contention, and then that creates the space for you to bring some of these guys up too.
Okay, so after Sunday's game, the Royals had the worst record in the American League, and but not all is lost for the Royals. There's some bright spots. We'll talk about those in a moment. Hey, it's Blair Kerkhoff, and if you're listening to this, you love Kansas City sports, whether it's the Chiefs, Royals, Sporting, Mizzou, KU, or K-State. And no one covers these teams like the Kansas City Star. If you currently subscribe to the paper or have a digital subscription, thank you for your support. And if you don't, here's a great offer. It's called Sports Pass, unlimited digital access to every sports story and video on kansascity.com. And it's just $30 for the first year. It's the best sports value in town, just 8 cents a day or $2.50 a month. You can't beat that. Subscribe now at kansascity.com/sportspass. All right, we're back talking Royals baseball, and they do have the worst record in the American League after Sunday's game at 14-27. But there have been some bright spots for this team, more so than at this time a year ago, right, when they had a similar record. But you've got at least 4 guys in the lineup, you could make a case for the All-Star team.
Yeah.
Could you not? And let's just start at the top. The season Whit Merrifield's having. The hitting streak went to 31 games, club record. That was the highlight of the early part of the season. Vahe, Gregorian. What's been admirable about Whit Merrifield's season?
It's sort of the opposite of the very thing that's holding them back. It's the consistency, right? I mean, he shows up every day and in every way, and he's really been that since he joined the organization. I always, of all the guys on this team, he's like one of the guys that I most like to just know what he did every day. And there's always just that combination of pure ball player and grit, and I think it's a little contagious. I think his story is a little contagious too. Like, after 6-7 years of trying to get here, finally getting it. So I think that's what I think of when I think of him.
I'll tell you what, my enduring image of Whit Merrifield is when he has a bad at bat. He is mad at himself. He'll smack the bat or throw it down hard or something. He's ticked off after a bad at bat, isn't he?
He is.
Let's just move down the lineup here. Alberto Mondesi, Sam. What he's having. I don't know if he's ahead of schedule. He might be. I don't know. We saw him in 2015 in the World Series. That's how much the Royals thought of him.
Yeah.
Bring him up for the 2015 World Series, and I believe he struck out looking, or was he swinging? I can't remember.
I remember he struck out.
Yeah, he did. He went down.
He was over.
Totally
that
overmatched.
moment was too big for him, and he only had the at bat because the game was out of reach.
Yeah, that was the game they lost in New York. It was the one World Series game they lost.
They brought him up to run, basically, just to be another pair of legs that they could use as a pinch hitter. But or pinch runner. I'm sorry, but he's amazing. He is. Whether you want to go back to Carlos Beltran or Bo Jackson, he is the most physically talented player that the Royals have had since one of those two guys.
Yeah.
A switch hitting shortstop who can hit 440-foot home runs, who's one of the fastest. By sprint speed, he is faster to first base from the right side than Billy Hamilton is from the left. It is ridiculous how much, and he's got a huge arm. I don't know. You said, is he ahead of schedule? Is he behind schedule? And you say you don't know. I don't think anybody can know because his schedule has always been the thing that the Royals and other baseball people have said is whenever he figures it out, whenever he believes that he is as talented as everybody around him believes he is, it's over. That's the term that I keep hearing. It's just over, and it might be starting to get over. Because he is. Look, his plate discipline is still a concern. That's if something's going to keep him from reaching the very top of that ceiling, it's that he strikes out a lot, and he doesn't walk enough to offset that. It's basically plate discipline. It's what Hunter Dozier used to be, right? So if he can solve that a little bit, he is an MVP caliber talent. If next year he is the best player in baseball, that would not be a shock. He is that talented. He's better than anybody. He is more talented than anybody that the Royals have when they won the World Series.
That's true. I believe that to be true. And Lorenzo Cain was third in the MVP.
Lorenzo Cain is the closest. Yep.
But I don't remember ever thinking maybe Lorenzo, but as good as those guys were for what they were and what they meant here then, I don't remember thinking there's an MVP case being made across the board anywhere.
Mondesi will end up with better numbers this year than Cain did in 15.
Lorenzo Cain was a next level defender. But I think he hit 15 home runs in 15 and he was third in MVP voting that year.
Right.
A distant third. It was Trout and then a bunch, then Donaldson and then a bunch. But he was third in MVP voting that year. But Mondesi's potential as a hitter, as an offensive player, is just a lot more than Lorenzo Cain. It's all potential still.
It is. But man, I like your thought process. I think when the game starts to get boring for him, he's going to be special. When he masters the game, the way the greats have. You've seen that happen in baseball before.
And it is just to me, it's like a thrill to watch him. I just don't remember being like this, like just genuinely excited to see a particular play. Because, I mean, he can do, they've had guys like, you know, Hosmer can do specific things. Sal can do specific, you know, like Greinke when in 2009 when he was Greinke, like, you know, that was fun. But like, I mean, Mondesi can, I mean, he can win a game with a play in the hole. He can win a game, you know, with nothing but his legs. He can win a game with a home run. I mean, it's just like over and over and over again. I mean, he can do absolutely everything. And we're at that moment where we're starting to see him grow into that. It's no longer just, well, Mondesi's coming, like Mondesi's here. And now we can see. I think it's an incredibly cool thing to be able to do.
And how about just the idea of the parking lot producing, Mondesi and Mahomes just across the way. Why hasn't that T-shirt been printed yet? You know, the Mondesi Mahomes T-shirt.
Same age,
yep.
Premium positions in each sport. It's funny too. Like you'll hear like baseball people talk about this sometime. Of, you know, if Monty grew up in America, we would not have him in our game. Like that's what more than one person will say. Like he'd be a football player. He'd be a quarterback. He'd be a receiver. He'd be a cornerback. He'd be something. He would not be, you know, like American kids for whatever reason with that type of, and there's a lot of reasons, we could talk about that a different day, but you know, with that type of just high ceiling, like fast twitch athleticism, they play other sports. And this is kind of what it looks like when they play this one, you know?
I like that topic. And if he was Brazilian, he'd be World Cup soccer player. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
No, he's that good of an athlete. He just leads.
Yeah.
Does he lead the league in triples right now, or stolen? I think he just took over the lead in stolen bases.
Stolen bases,
I think
triples.
Both.
I'd have to look. I haven't looked at.
I know the Royals lead.
They
baseball
do.
in those two categories.
And at one point, he and Merrifield were 1 and 2, I think.
Yeah.
Just individually. That was probably a couple days back, or I forget exactly when that was. But yeah, and I think Mondesi clearly, you know, like Sam has sort of gone chapter and verse. Is clearly tools, athleticism, best player, one of the best players in baseball. You know, just in terms of athletic gifts, and surprisingly, I think, to this point in this season, the Royals have a guy who is not that way athletically, but as far as production, is one of the best hitters in baseball, and that's Hunter Dozier, if you look at the numbers. And I don't know how many people saw that at all coming into this season. I mean, I remember reading one of those baseball preview magazines where they had the anonymous scout, who I believe the quote was something along the lines of, "Really? They're starting Hunter Dozier every day at third base?" Well, yeah, really. They're starting Hunter Dozier every day at third base, and he's one of the best hitters in the American League thus far, after a slow start where people were like, I don't know if this guy's going to, you know, make it. And now he's, you know, he was leading the, I haven't looked today, but he was leading the American League in OPS for a long stretch, was top 5 in batting average, slugging, on-base percentage. He's up to, I think, 9 home runs now. It's 9 or
I think it's 9.
9.
So, yeah.
And he's just, I mean, he took over that cleanup spot. I remember in spring training when Sal went down and like, who's going to be the cleanup hitter? Is it going to be Soler? He strikes out. We're not sure if he's going to be staying healthy. And it was Soler for the first like week or two. And then once Hunter started swinging the bat, that switch was easy, and that gave you a top 4 in that lineup. That's, you know, those are the guys you count on. That's where the runs have come from, and Dozier's been a key to that.
The thing I really appreciate about Dozier is that it's a little different than Mondesi, right? I mean, Mondesi, you know, yeah, it was little flashes, but you weren't going a long period of time thinking this guy's not going to make it. But a lot of people, I think, went a period of time thinking the Dozier's just not quite going to make it. A hand just went up in this room,
present company included.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the matter of perception, right? I mean, I remember last year, at some point, writing about seeing a little progress, and maybe I just look for that, right? Maybe you just get wired that way, but feeling like you saw something starting to come, and then he kind of fell off the cliff a little bit later, and it was like, well. But so many times we're faced with this exact situation with youngish players. They're coming up, and they're not quite all there. They don't all have, certainly few have the gifts that Mondesi has. So the rest of them have a little more pedestrian path, right? You know, trial and error, not quite being there. And I think you wrote extensively about this, Sam. Crucial to Dozier is recognizing the strike zone.
It's unbelievable. I mean, Dozier, that was my hand that went up because I mean I just thought he was a number 8 pick, I think, in the draft, the top 10
I think
pick.
It was 7. It might have been 7.
It was a top 10 pick in the draft. As a college hitter, those guys are supposed to hit right away, and for him to be 27 and his career on base was like 280 or something. I mean, and he was just looked overmatched. When he hit the ball, he'd hit it hard, but whatever, like he struck out so much. And like, that's the amazing thing to me about his season is that if you talk to him or if you look at the numbers, the answer is, well, he just stopped swinging at balls. Now he's swinging at strikes. And it's like, well, right, like that's what everybody is trying to do in baseball. Like that's the whole
Why
game.
didn't anybody think of that?
It's like, well, he just started hitting shots. Well, like, yeah, it just, I don't know how did he do that? Like that part of it is just absolutely amazing. And look, it's been what, 7 weeks or whatever. I mean, we're just shy of 2 months, so you want to see it more and all that stuff. But if he keeps that chase rate diminished, this is real. He's not going to lead the American League in OPS, I don't think, but he's a real middle of the order for a championship club team. That's whose value is amplified because he's got some positional versatility there.
Right.
Play either corner in the infield or the outfield.
Yeah. And he doesn't.
That's
I
pretty
mean,
good.
he hasn't even really been fully healthy this year because he's had this back issue that kept him from even playing in the field for, I'm trying to remember what it was, like a week or two, or maybe even longer than that. And he's still, I mean, so there's a game in Tampa where they had him DHing because like his back was flaring up, and they're like, okay, we still need this bat in the lineup. And he had like a single, the back started to tighten up. They stretch him out because, he's not in the field, so he's got time in between innings. They can trying to get him warm, stretch him out. And so then he goes back out there and hits a home run. And he's like tightening up, running the bases. So, I mean, he's out there smacking balls out of the ballpark when he's, he can barely move his back and he can get himself, get the swing around. And now he's starting to, feel better. I think a lot of what we're talking about with him, just like, obviously there's the plate discipline, but there's just also, I think, just mentally being more comfortable. Like he's talked about not getting in the box and thinking so much about mechanics, and that's sort of being comfortable with where he's at. He talked about this a little bit at FanFest, just I think the fact that when he started playing every day, he was stepping into Moose's role. That played a factor too, just in his comfort. I mean, he mentioned it in FanFest when I talked to him a little bit, that like, yeah, that was something that it took him a little while to be comfortable and find himself again. And I think with the plate discipline, and I think he mentioned this to you, is when it comes to mechanics and all that sort of stuff and not thinking so much and being more controlled, he had that at one point, but then he had the year where he was injured and missed a whole lot of time. And I think that set him back because he had finally found that, then spent all that time not playing. Yeah. And then you come back and it was back to, before he sort of got on track.
I think it was 17. He played something like 30 games.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like when this happens, like, I mean, baseball, a lot of times all of us, right? Maybe it's just me, but I think all of us like tend to oversimplify things, and like the hitting, well, just forget about your mechanics and swing at strikes. And it's like, what? When you get up there against a guy that's throwing like 95 with the slider and all this stuff, it's like, well, my mechanics better be okay.
Well, I was going to say, plus it's like the mechanics do count.
Yeah.
Like, you need them.
And it just, you don't see, and again, like very obviously, like, let's see what his numbers are at the end of the year. And then he'll do it, and then you got to do it again, right? But gosh, like it's just, you don't see that often a guy go from that, at least in my dumb eyes, like lost, and a 27-year-old, basically former prospect at that point, with a 280 or whatever career on base and not that much power, and then now he's just taking, it's incredible.
Look, by you saying that, I feel the need to just throw this in there too, though. Talking about a guy who looked lost and past his prime, past his time, was Alex Gordon.
Yeah.
And last year or two, I can remember talking to Dayton. I think we've all had different conversations with people over there where they expressed sort of true mystification in the sense of like they didn't think the bat speed was any lower, or had been reduced at all, diminished. Like they really seemed to struggle to understand what was going wrong, but they thought everything was still there. And I think we scoffed at that. I did. You did. I mean, you kind of wonder how this could possibly come back around. And I don't really know how to account for what has snapped back into place. Lynn, you wrote about that a couple different times, a couple different ways. What do you think has happened to make it work out?
Well, the age-old baseball term, adjustments. Adjustments. He finally got to a point where he struggled enough that things that they had been talking to him about and trying to get him to change. When you're
back to, right?
Some terms go back to when you can't, when you're just struggling to a certain point that you just, and I think Ned was saying this the other day, you get to a certain point where, because you have to be stubborn to be as good as he had been. So it takes a while for you to be willing to change, but you get to the point where you're just sort of like done. It's like, all right, what do you guys got for me? Like, what can you do? Even to the point where I think, so now Dale Swaim was the hitting coach from, I want to say was it 14 to 16 or 17, and so during that time, and he's one of those guys where he was the hitting coach 14 to 16 or 17, but he had gone back and reviewed all of Alex's, looked at his at-bats, his stance, everything from early in his career. So it's not like he was just familiar with that span that he was the hitting coach. He's, whatever Alex had done, he was familiar with. And so I guess he'd been trying to talk to him about making some changes, and he sort of resisted. And it was one of those things where I think Ned made the comment that he told Dale, he said, hey, so we need you to go fix him, get him back. And he said, when he's ready, I'll fix him. And I guess basically last year he became ready. Last year, between having bad numbers, injuries, just not, being comfortable at the plate, finally it was actually one of the injuries that sort of gave him a chance to step back and start making those changes, because you hear guys say it's hard to do when you're, playing every day, to make major changes and to do it consistently. But when you have that time off and you can go in the cage and do, 1,000 swings and do these drills, then it becomes a little bit easier. And so last year he sort of did that. He made the changes, got more upright in his stance, changed his hand placement a little bit to give him, he uses the term free his hands up, Gordo does, but basically just to trying to keep him from being so crouched over, because it was basically eliminating a whole bunch of pitches he just couldn't get to. And when they made those changes, he started to see the results at the end of last year, took it into spring training, and he's kept with it this season. And he's, besides Hunter, consistently, he's probably been, the second best hitter in terms of production in that lineup.
Can I say something real quick? He has had the weirdest career. Just the absolute, he in consecutive years, he was the college player of the year, then the minor league player of the year, and then the Royals opening day third baseman. He had 2 standing ovations before he ever took a swing in a Major League Baseball game. And then he sucked for a long time. And then, I'm just looking at these numbers. He had a 671 OPS in 2010. And the end of that season, he gave Bob Dutton the "I'm going to dominate" line. And then the next year, he had an 879 OPS. It just jumped. If you went into a coma in the winter of 2015, right after Alex Gordon signed that contract, and you just woke up and you found out he's hitting 296 with a 381 on base and a 542 slug in the last year of that contract, you would think that was the best contract in the history of Major League Baseball, right? But I mean, he said a bigger jump, actually, from last year to this year in terms of offense. And again, we're in mid-May, right? But still, it's just, it's the weirdest career. Just the absolute weirdest career.
But I think he is a player who this market appreciates.
Yeah.
He is in his 13th, I think, Major League season. There are only a couple other players that have been with their original team longer than him. I think Dustin Pedroia is up there, Ryan Braun, I miss Felix, King Felix in Seattle. Yeah. He got his 1500th hit, career hit the other night with a 2-home run game against the Phillies. And there, I think of the other 2 that I mentioned, Pedroia, Braun, there may be one or 2 others that have had as many hits for his original team that are currently playing. So I don't think he's never not been appreciated here. And the fact that he's Nebraska kid and local product, I can remember when he was drafted in the early years of his development, Dayton Moore often talked about that's the way they did it in Atlanta. They found Atlanta high school kids and tried to, Chipper Jones was came through that way, and others, the Braves. So he was sort of an example of what the Royals could be if they developed homegrown talent. You know what? I think when his career, we'll talk about this another day because the Royals are going to have a decision to make about Alex Gordon. We'll save that for another show because I think that's really interesting.
It's so interesting.
But when his career is over here, I think he's going to be one of the top 6 or 7 players who ever played for the Royals. You've got the Brett, White, McRae, Wilson. Who am I missing? Maybe after that, who's...
If you're going position players, Amos Otis.
He'd be the other one, top 5,
list.
I think, of Royals all time. And then Sweeney, or because of the lifetime career production, Alex Gordon or Mike Sweeney would be right after that. So yeah, it's you keep waiting for more. You always want a little bit more from Alex Gordon, but his career numbers are looking pretty good right now. He's going to get close to 200 home runs with the Royals. He's already 4th on that list. We'll save his contract decision for another show because I really wanted to, before we finished up, I wanted to talk about one more guy who's also a very long tenured Royal, and that's Danny Duffy, who will make, I think he's the next Royal start. He's going to start on Tuesday against the Rangers. So a couple of good starts for Danny Duffy. And at a time when the Royals are looking for some consistency from their starting pitching, he's been at least the recent good news, hasn't he, Lynn?
Yeah. I mean, since coming off the IL, not the DL anymore, the IL.
I'm still not used to that.
He's made 3 starts. I think he gave up the home run in that first start against, I think it was Anaheim. And other than that, I think it was basically like that was 2 of the 3 runs that he gave up, if I remember right. Then he looked good in that start against Houston. I mean, that was the game where they scored a bunch of runs and basically it was like throw strikes. So he did 6 2/3. I mean, he gets almost through 7 complete, just his 3rd start, of the season, and gave up 2 runs and just pitched strong. He feels healthy. I know he said it in spring training, and like at the end of last year, he's used the analogy of he was pitching with his shoulder in a vice grip. Now he feels healthy. He's throwing, the breaking ball again, which, I mean, he did it last year, but a couple years ago when he was coming off of surgery, the curveball disappeared. He didn't have the confidence to throw it, so he's feeling healthy, throwing all of his pitches. And for a rotation that's got these young guys we talked about earlier, that just you don't know what you're getting when they take the mound. They could be really good, it could be really bad, it could be somewhere in the middle. You have some consistency with Duffy that when he takes the ball, you're going to get at least a certain level. And there's, he could maybe flash one of those old-time Duffy outings as well.
Yeah, it's been fun to see him throw the last couple of games. All right, so the Royals have played, as of our recording, 41 games, which means it's not technically the quarter pole. It's 1 game plus the quarter, but 40 more games will bring them to 81, and that will be the halfway point of the season. So let's end by projecting the Royals' record in the next 40 games, keeping in mind they've played kind of a difficult schedule the first quarter of the season. A lot of teams that are 500 or better, thanks in part to the Royals. But also
with 27 of those wins coming against the Royals.
Right. So I don't. But after the Rangers, they think they get the Angels in LA or in Anaheim this weekend. I don't know what the schedule is after that, but I think if we project the record over the next 40 games, it'll at least maybe give us an idea of if we think they're making progress or not. Vahe, let's start with you. What's a 40-game record that'll take the Royals to the midseason point?
I think this 40-game record is more of what I think they are. I would project them at about 18-22, 17-23. Not quite a winning team, but a better team than they've shown.
I think you just spoke for Sam on that because he gave
I just did the math. Like it was literally, I was going back between 17 and 18, and my calculator here tells me that 18 and 22 would be a pace for 73 wins, which is pretty much what I think that's what they are. The weird thing about this team is that they deserve their record. They deserve every one of those losses. But in the stuff that matters, to me anyway, because I look at this team like long term, I never thought this team would contend. In the stuff that matters, they're much better than that. In the stuff that matters, they are making some real progress. I think maybe that'll start to show the pitching. I still believe in Brad Keller, not as a 1, but as a 3-ish, give or take on a good team. I think he'll get it fixed. Junis, I'm less confident about, but I just the stuff's going to get going. I believe that because so much of that record is the bullpen just stunk for a long time, and I think the bullpen's a little bit better now as well.
What do you think, Lynn?
I'd like to, in my mind, say that they'll be more like a 500 team. I can't quite go that far yet, so I'm gonna go with 19 and would that be 19 and 21? I'll give them that. I'll say they just can't keep losing as many close games as they've already lost. I think 7 one-run games already they've lost, and with the bullpen at least coming around, that number's got to change. So I'll give them closer to 500. I just can't quite give them 500 off of what I've seen thus far with my own eyes.
That's right. The closer you are to it. So I'll give them 20 and 20 just because the math is easy. So
that's a pace for 81 over a full season. I didn't have to use my calculator.
Okay. Well, Lynn Worthy, Sam Mellinger, Vahe Gregorian, thanks for stopping by and talking Royals.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, Blair.
Thanks.
Links to the stories that we've discussed can be found in the show notes and on kansascity.com. This has been Sports Beat KC, a sports podcast presented by the Kansas City Star. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back soon to talk Kansas City sports.